Hi, I'm Paul McGowan. Let's get to today's question. Let's see what kind of surprise is in here for me. All right. Pete in Texas writes, can you explain the phenomena of clipping, its effects on music, its dangers to amplifiers and equipment, and whether the DMP DS-DAC combo is prone to it when driving preamps and power amps not from PS Audio's family, lower powered amps? There's a Pete. There's a lot in that. Let's just let me talk about clipping for a moment, and I'll see if I can. I'm going to leave this right here and just see if I can't get to that. So clipping is a phenomena that truncates off the top of a sine wave. So when we're talking about music, if I were to grab into this microphone and yell real loud, I could overmodulate the microphone and clip it, okay, because too much level came into that. And if we were to look at, I should probably get some kind of drawing materials, but if we're to look at a sine wave, and they have these nice gentle curves, right, and clipping, you would actually whack off the very top of the sine wave and create almost a square wave. So it tries to go up in terms of level, and it can't go any further, so it clips. It's just imagine taking a sine wave and snipping off or clipping off the top of that sine wave or group of sine waves, and that cutting off of it is what's actually called clipping. And yes, it can be very bad for equipment, in particular tweeters. So when you clip music or a sine wave, that squaring off of the sine wave creates very high frequency energy, and a tweeter is very sensitive to that energy. And most tweeters really don't handle a lot of power. You're talking 10, 15, 20 watts of power for the average tweeter. So if you clip a sine wave or a musical signal and you do it hard enough, in other words, lopping it off wide enough and for a long enough period of time, that unwanted high-frequency energy being transferred into the tweeter can burn the tweeter unless it's fused, which it should be. So yes, it can be bad. It happens pretty infrequently these days unless you have a very small amplifier. So imagine if you have a 20-watt amplifier. Most of us don't. Most of us have hundreds of watts in our amplifiers. But if you had an amplifier that was pretty small and it was a solid state amplifier, then your chances of clipping, if you crank the volume up, are pretty good if your speakers are reasonably efficient, meaning they're in the 90 to 95 dB efficiency, 89, somewhere around there. If you had really efficient speakers, like a lot of horns are, 99, 97, very high efficiency, then it doesn't take many watts to drive those speakers to a very loud level. And in that case, you wouldn't get any clipping, even if you played it very loud. So there's a whole bunch of factors going on here for clipping. So you can't just make any sweeping statements other than if you are clipping your system, it's not a good thing. It'll sound bad, and it could possibly damage your tweeter. Now, Pete also asks if, let's see, the DMP, which is our direct stream memory player, and the DS-DAC combo are prone to clipping when driving preamps and power amps. Again, kind of a broad question. In general, no. 99.9% of any digitally recorded audio is not in, it has no clipping in it. I mean, digital audio by its very nature, if done with anything reasonable, and most of them are, simply don't clip, because we're talking about a digital waveform and you're not going to record that clipping. But I think what Pete means is whether or not the loudness out of a DMP DAC combo from us will exceed the input voltage requirements or limitations of a power amp. And yeah, it could. But in general, by the time you get it up to that level of loudness to where it's potentially going to clip, your hair is standing back on end. I mean, you got a lot of level for most loudspeakers, so I don't think it's something I would worry about. But a great question. Thanks, Pete.